Hello everybody and welcome to this top 5 list of worst killer perks of Dead by Daylight. This list contains 5 perks that serve little to no benefit to the killer in comparison to all other killer perks. This isn't to say they don't serve a purpose, but that the purpose might be overshadowed by more useful perks that are more commonly used by more experienced killers. This list is for current perks as of patch 1.5.2, and this list is comprised of my opinion and my opinion alone. If you disagree with anything on the list, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and with that out of the way, let's begin. Number 5. Monstrous Shrine. When making this list, it was a bit difficult to put these in order, as a lot of these either serve a purpose that hardly benefits the killer or just don't help the killer kill. And in this case, Monstrous Shrine was a perk that originally was not considered for this list until I read deeply into it. The perk increases the speed in which the progression to sacrifice moves faster and makes it harder for survivors to leap off on their own, with a larger punishment for trying. When applied to all hooks, this would be a relatively decent perk, but I could argue that others would be better, yet that's my point. Only when applied to all hooks would this even be just a decent perk. Instead, this perk is specifically only to affect the 4 hooks in the basement, meaning it's useless if you're not pulling them specifically to the basement to gain the benefit of the perk. It's not too often that survivors try to make the leap off the hook in the first place, but if they try, it's at least a low 4% chance. Depending on if the stats are additive or multiplied, the 15% reduction of 4% would either mean they have absolutely no chance of jumping off, or you literally are removing 0.2% of their chances of escape. In a way, I guess you could argue that it can counter those pesky luck add-ons and offerings, but again, those are not ran that often, meaning you're running this perk as a chance that survivors were attempting to intentionally jump off hooks in the basement. If you place them anywhere else, they still get their full luck add-ons. In the end, the perk isn't all that useless, but it doesn't serve a purpose of hunting survivors, nor does it work very well because it only applies to the basement. While trying to make a loadout for it, I couldn't find anything that would complement it that well that I don't already run, such as Agitation or Iron Grasp, and I find this perk that just wastes a slot in my loadout plus my Blood Web. Number 4. Unnerving Presence. Taking our 4th spot is a teachable perk from the Trapper, Unnerving Presence. I have to say that when I use this perk, I always thought it would be useful to cause skill checks to occur more frequently with a harder radius, but as I got better, I began to realize this perk more or less helps skilled survivors. When survivors are within your terror radius, they'll have more frequent skill checks with a smaller radius, causing them to have a slightly harder chance to succeed at them. You would typically think that this would help you track any survivors who are performing actions near you. However, it seems to be either completely useless or in fact actually helps survivors. Typically, if a new survivor were to hear your heartbeat, they freak out and they stop doing what they're doing. The benefit to this is that there will be a greater chance that a skill check occurs when they try to stop that action, causing a failure of the action, giving you a notification. Otherwise, there is no benefit if they are too afraid to do any actions in your terror radius. If you're against an experienced survivor, on the other hand, they could use the skill checks to gain additional points and even faster progression. This is more or less the opposite of what a killer perk should do. If you were to prevent point gain, then I would remove it off this list. However, currently, it serves more as a tool to give more points to the survivors and help them finish their tasks faster when the killer is nearby. With that said, there's still this chance to play with survivors that can make this mistake from the smaller radius, and it does make the skill checks slightly harder, which is why I can't put this as the worst perk, but it definitely is not much of a perk for killers than it is for survivors. Number 3. Bitter Murmur. This perk was another perk I used to run when I first began as killer to help me secure those kills at the end of the game. Once the final generator is fixed, it reveals the location of survivors for a brief few seconds. In my mind, this had helped me at those last moments to find and chase down what survivors I could secure before they got away. Looking at it now though, I see why it belongs on this list. The perk really does nothing. All the game you'll carry this perk with you while it does nothing, benefiting you in no way, killing and chasing survivors until, oh look, the final generator's been done. Looking around, you can see the survivors' auras. Oh, did you see that one? That one while I was busy doing everything else. Good, because I didn't. The perk hardly lasts, and if you are carrying someone on your shoulder, this is likely to get wasted. The Bitter Murmur even received a recent buff, increasing the duration of the auras that are shown. It's so short that if you're not ready for that final generator, you might not even get to take the chance to see the survivors, leaving this to just be a terrible perk in general. I mean, generally they have a good idea for the perk, but what could possibly make it more viable is to reveal the locations every time a generator is complete to let the perk come into play more often instead of just one time. Otherwise, once the generators are fixed, you're boned without running more powerful perks at the end game like No One Escapes Death. Not sure why you would pick Bitter Murmur unless you're trying to risk it all for that end game and combining it with OutDated. But when you're combining it with No One Escapes Death, it's like you're just waiting for the generators to get fixed to get any benefit. Number 2. Unrelenting. Unrelenting used to be a decent perk, giving you speed to recovery on both hit and missed attacks. It served as a general hunting tool, allowing you to chase faster since you didn't have to waste as much time wiping off your weapon. However, now, after its nerf, the perk has lost its general usefulness and has become a single-purpose perk. Just practice. Giving you the boost recovery after missing an attack, it allows you to attack faster after making a mistake, which it's not as punishing of a mistake anyways. On top of that, this used to be a really good perk for killers that didn't have a very strong tool in and of itself. The Wraith specifically could use this and it helped out. However, now the Wraith really doesn't have much and really could use that rework that everyone else did not vote for. God damn it. Anyways, with that being said, missing an attack in the first place is not all that punishing. You might not even notice this effect taking effect when you do use it and miss. The attacks typically auto-lock anyways, which should help you hit instant swings. And if you lunge past your opponent, you should know to let go of the attack button so it just quickly hits them. Missing is not all that big of a deal for me. When I do miss, it's not that long of recovery, and Unrelenting does not help me in any way. I'd be happy if we can go back to being unrelenting killers, like if I could just be the Wraith with unrelenting and have just a small bonus, even if the bonus was small and insignificant. I mean, they already nerfed Save the Best for last. I mean, come on! Number 1. Insidious. Hands down, probably the worst perk in the game that encourages the worst strategy. Insidious has no purpose other than to camp. I've tried to use this perk in clever ways in order to score some nifty kills, but in the end, it's a massive time waster and typically is just there to remove your heartbeat so you could wait next to the hook and lure unsuspecting survivors to save someone you've already hooked. In fact, the fact this perk even exists scares me. Its only purpose is for camping. I can't find any other way to use this no matter how hard I try. Standing near generators or waiting in a field does you no good because you're not hunting survivors and they're getting generators while you stand still like a goober. You can't move during this and it takes time to take effect. It doesn't even stop you from making growling noises and the survivors can still see you. It's a joke, honestly. It has no viable setups other than to down someone, hide, and wait for someone to come by so you can spook them. Survive with Friends will immediately counter this as people will just point out you've gone Insidious and you're right there. Then the rest of them will laugh at you as they just complete generators. In fact, during the footage you're watching about Insidious, I had no time to actually use Insidious. My stream also had me try Insidious about 2 to 3 times, to which I couldn't use. I don't like to camp. It's nasty, it's a terrible strategy, it's worth the least points. There just doesn't feel to be a way to make this perk worth a damn in any sense, since camping just generally looked down upon. I myself don't hate camping that much. I mean, I don't camp, but I understand what everyone else's frustration is with that kind of strategy. It's not a very good strategy, but it's still a strategy. A strategy that is encouraged by a really crappy perk such as this, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Insidious is the worst perk of Dead by Daylight. It does not help the hunt and only supports a cheap tactic that is easily overthrown, and once again, it more or less helps the survivors by making you think you're doing something good by just standing there since you're not hunting properly. It doesn't even teach you to be a better killer. Yeah, some of the survivors can fall for this occasionally, and you might get a couple of teams like this, but this wasn't a list about the worst survivors walking into the worst strategies. And that just about wraps up my list, and what do you guys think? Do you agree? What perks do you hate the most? Let me know what your top 5 list is down in the comments below. I also want to thank you again for stopping by. If you have a love for Dead by Daylight, check out my other videos. I've covered lore, gameplay, guides, and even made some general tip videos recently that might help you out if you're starting on the consoles. Links in the description down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, good game.